Jimmy, what the hell are you doing out here on the sidewalk in a phone box? We're supposed to be at a popcorn counter.
You didn't get my message? I've been phoning you all night.
I don't have my cell phone. I'm coming to the theater. I'm going to watch a movie. I don't want to have a cell phone with
How could you leave the house without your cell phone? It doesn't make any sense.
God. Well,
How could you even be alive right now? That's impossible.
Oh, my God. Are we going to have a long conversation now about phones? Because we've got to get in there to see that movie.
I've put 10 pence into this phone, so I've got to make sure I get my 3 minutes worth. So I'm not going anywhere for the next 3 minutes.
Well,
I remember back when I used to do stand-up, there was... I was struggling to remember. Sally Ann Hayward, that's it. There was a comic called Sally Ann Hayward who used to do this material about how if she wanted to feel this kind of real exciting frisson of daring, then she would leave the house without her mobile phone because, my God, anything could happen.
Yeah.
And that was kind of funny. This is about the year 2002 or something. It's kind of unthinkable now, isn't it? Who would leave the house without their phone?
Yeah. Well, for me, what I've been thinking about a little bit is that when I was in university, we didn't have them. I'm that old, where it wasn't even invented at that point, really. You had to be where you said you were going to be when you were going to be there, you know? I mean, like, if you had a date or something like that, or you're going to meet up with friends, you just had to hold to your accountability and be there. Just get there. And you might have on a scrap of paper, you might have a couple telephone numbers in your wallet where you could call someone with a payphone. But, that's unthinkable to kids these days. You just, you can text at the last minute and say, oh, I'm not coming. Ugh. Right? Or, oh, I'm in traffic or whatever. So there was just this whole level of accountability that we don't have anymore.
I remember when a friend of mine got a pager. This is like just before mobile phones came in. He had a pager. It was exciting. But you had to phone this premium rate telephone number and then talk to a lady on the other end of the line and spell out what your message was.
Oh, God. Yeah, times have changed. But one thing I've recently realized is that I have intentionally set a number of scripts, and Pub Guide's one of them, really, 2007, 8, or earlier, even earlier. And I think it's because I don't want to have phones in my scripts. So Pub Guide right now, if we ever do a rewrite, you don't need a GPS system, for example, because it's on your phone.
No, you're right, yep.
Or if you get lost, you can find a pub by looking up its address. So, I mean, it's right on that line. And another feature film that I wrote recently, I wanted security footage, but I didn't want really good security footage. It had to be really rough. So you have to be in that age when it was still put onto DVDs or something. So it's about that same time. And I also wanted really crappy phones to be able to film a couple scenes, but I didn't want a good phone, because a good phone would really clearly identify a culprit, right? But I wanted a crappy image, so you've got to go with a flip phone from about 2005 or 6. So I found myself setting things before the invention of the smartphone in particular, because I think it just makes for better storytelling.
I read a script, I co-wrote a script about 5 years ago now called Car Share, which is like a slasher movie about a lift sharing website where you put your details about where you want to go, and people who are making the same journey will all chip in, and it'll connect you all up, and you'll share a car journey together. Ooh. And you save on the gas, and you save on you get to meet some new friends on the way. But obviously one of the people who is in the car share is an axe murderer. And he's got this kind of scheme and so he and it was like a complicated setup because we had to get rid of everybody's mobile phone. Yeah. So he's the driver, and basically he buys everyone a coffee at the service station. He says, let me get you a coffee. And so he drugs them all, so everybody else falls asleep in the car. Oh. And while they are asleep, he steals and destroys their phones. And this was absolutely necessary because otherwise, the movie would be 15 minutes long, and people would phone up to get help, or the police, or they'd know where they were, and they'd be able to escape. So you end up with more and more elaborate schemes to get rid of the phones. Yeah. But time travel is the best one I've heard yet. Absolutely, all films should happen before 2005. Yeah, Problem solved.
Oh, and you wouldn't need these clunky moments. How often in a film do you say, "Oh no, I can't get service here," or a scene has to take place in a very remote area so that someone doesn't have service, or "Oops, I just happened to leave my phone on the train." And there are all these just transparent efforts at getting the phones out of the film. It's kind of bizarre. It's where we are, though.
Sometimes having a mobile phone can lead to an absolutely outstanding bit of cinema. The scene I'm thinking of I knew we were going to talk about phones, and I was just thinking, what are my favourite phone scenes in movies? Yeah. Have you seen Lost Highway, the David Lynch movie?
Not in 30 years, yeah.
And there's this fantastic scene in there, because that was kind of produced when mobile phones were really pretty new, still cell phones were new. Is it Robert Loggia? That's it, I think. No, Robert Blake.
Robert Blake, yeah.
Who plays this kind of mysterious guy. And he tells the protagonist, I'm at your house right now, and he produces his phone and kind of says, phone me. And so the guy phones his own home number, and then Robert Blake, picks up the phone, even though he's standing in front of him now.
Yeah.
And I think he says on the phone, he says something like, "See, I told you I was at your house. Now give me back my phone."
Menace, yeah.
And it's such a great spooky scene that's really seared into my mind. It is possible to make great cinema that wouldn't be possible without mobile phones.
I think so.
But it's few and far between.
Think of all those on Hitchcock films, some of the old black and whites where someone cuts the wire to the house. That happens in Cape Fear too, maybe, I think. I mean, that's a great way of eliminating the phone and just amping up the anxiety for the viewer and the characters. So I think of that.
What's that cliche in Scream that gets repeated so often? Is it that the phone call is coming from inside the house?
Oh, yeah.
I love that. But you try and explain that to young people now. What do you mean, of course, it's coming from inside the house? What's weird about that? I don't understand.
I know, that takes away the scariest thing that happens in all those horror films is no longer possible. So I've just had a lot of frustration. And then I'm starting to see some of the really bad things. Like there's so many films now that have text messages come up on screen, right? You've got to show the text. You've got to show who's calling. And what filmmakers might not understand is that a lot of people are watching this stuff on phones. So you can't see an image of a phone on a phone. It's just this awful mirror image of nonsense. And I've got bad eyes anyway. I mean, I can see my eyes losing their capacity. But I mean, I can't read a text message. I don't go to a film to watch a text message on screen. So
I don't know whether you saw the Marvel series Ms. Marvel. They're making a really big thing about trying to inventively show text messages between the characters. So the text messages come up on street signs, and they're written on the sidewalks or on the road.
Okay.
And they kind of do their best, but the only problem is it just takes you right out of the story every time you see it.
I hear you. Yeah.
It's like you're reminded, I'm sitting at home watching TV.
Yeah.
Which is the cardinal sin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, the cinema, TV, it's about transportation. And if you can't do that, if you remind people that they're back home, then you failed.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest problem is that you can now know anything instantly anywhere. And, so many great moments come out of cinema where you don't know what to do and you can't just watch a YouTube video to figure out how to change that tire on your car or how to take a knife out of a body, how to beat a shark. You can't just text or text a friend to find out, or you can't look on the internet with your phone. So so much great cinema comes out of people struggling to do things when they're not prepared. But now with phones, we can do anything at any time, really. We can be anywhere at any time. And I think that's a problem for film.
I guess it's also impossible to be an imposter these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't turn up pretending to be David Smith.
Yeah.
Because you can look up David Smith and see what his Instagram page is like.
Yes.
And you know instantly, no, you're not David Smith. He looks like this.
I work with a David Smith. You know David Smith? Oh, my God.
It's a small world.
Yeah. Do you remember Your Christmas or Mine? You mentioned this.
Oh, yeah.
There's this moment where the character's looking for his girlfriend's house, and he's not using Google Maps, so instead he pays £5 to each of these two kids to tell him where he's supposed to be, and he's already on the street. There's no reason to be lost anymore, which is terrible. You need to be lost.
He's time travel back to 2005 as well.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, actually, about when you're writing a scene with a telephone conversation in.
Yeah.
This, I think, is as big an issue, and it gets people as emotional as the question about whether you should have a double space after a period or a single space after a period. I've argued with so many people about this, but here's my question: is when you write a telephone conversation, do you write so the audience hears both sides of the call, or do you write it so the audience only hears the side of the call that they could hear if they were in the room with the actor?
Ooh. That's a great question. I hate writing phone calls. I think it's just For me,
you do text instead.
Yeah, for me, the bigger issue is how do you make a phone call visually interesting? So it's something happening in the background or the space where they're taking the call. I think I always write it assuming that you're doing not a split screen, but maybe a back and forth. I don't like intercutting between the two locations. I like the idea of not letting the viewer know what's happening on the other side. Although very often you have that off-screen voice sort of coming through the receiver, and you can hear at a diminished volume the other side of the conversation. What's your take? How do you do it?
I've tried to make a rule of never showing the other side of the conversation. Yeah. And you only hear the words that's spoken by the person who's in the same room as the camera. And you
don't even hear the other side of the conversation?
No, you maybe hear in the background, but you don't hear it over the speaker. You don't hear this kind of diminished voice. You don't hear any of that.
Yeah.
So it's just like a real... And I think the main reason I do that, I don't know whether you have ever seen the Hal Hartley film Amateur, which is, I don't know, probably from 1998, something like that, which I think has one of my favorite ever phone call scenes. Yeah. I think it's I cannot remember the main meat of the reason why this scene happens.
Yeah.
Or even what the character is discussing, but it's this woman, and she takes a phone call, and you only hear her side of what she says to the person on the other side. And I think it's something to do with a kidnapping or a ransom or something like that.
Okay.
But you can only tell what she hears by the way that her face changes and the reply she gives down the phone. And it's just an absolutely brilliant, masterful scene. And it goes, nice. She goes through all these changes and all these plot developments happen, and you only hear it from her side. And I think that's the way that all phone calls should be done.
Yeah.
Because this is how we see other people have phone calls in the real world.
Yeah. I think you've hit on something there. I think that if there's someone in the room or in the space where the one person is talking, so that we're almost just standing for that person's almost just standing for the viewer, then it sort of makes sense to sort of hear at least through the receiver the other side of the phone call. But you've got a point. I think that if there's no one else in the room, then it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to give the audience access to that other information. You could certainly use that as a story point to only keep that that information to the protagonist or whoever is on screen at that time, but not have the other side of the conversation there.
I think it makes it much more interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and to me, that's sort of the point. It's like so much great story comes out of either misunderstanding things or under-understanding things, but now there's less of that because, hell, we can know anything at any time. We can always just call someone to understand, oh, well, how do you make those cookies? You don't have to look in a recipe book anymore or run down to the corner or knock on your neighbor's door to find out. You just make the cookies. You just look it up online, or you call your mother, and you know how to make the cookies. So I just think it sort of makes people less active in a sense. They don't have to learn stuff. We don't have to spend time learning things, which is that classic montage of learning how to do something. No, you just look at the damn YouTube video, and you're done. That's it.
I did such a 20th century thing this evening, actually. After we had dinner tonight, for some reason, the question came up of where does the word meringue come from?
Oh, yeah.
And we have a culinary encyclopedia in the house. So I said, I've got an encyclopedia. Let's look it up. And the children were utterly gobsmacked that I was opening a book to find this out.
Oh, God.
What is the point of that? Just ask Google.
And film is so illiterate already, so that now it's just going to be less and less literate. I will say there's one great thing that has come out of phones and film, and that is, in this day and age, you can basically make a film on a phone. People have done it.
Yeah.
The quality is good enough. You see advertisements for people, making great films on phones. It's possible. So that is the one, ironically, great thing about phones and film.
It's both great and terrible, isn't it? Because if anybody can make a feature film, there's always the worry then that I do worry that there may be outstanding, astonishing low-budget films being made which just will never get the penetration.
Yeah.
Because someone has made them on a phone, and they get lost in the mire of the other 2,000 films that people have made on phones, and they will never make it to my eyes. I don't know how to solve that problem. We have distribution through YouTube, but how do we solve that problem of actually, appearing above the quagmire?
I gotta say, it's not a problem for us as podcasters because we need more crap films to review. So I look at it as job security. If we get into the theater to watch this next film, it's job security.
Yep. Okay, well, I've had my 3 minutes.
If we putz around here on the corner. Do you have anything else to say about your phone and your phone booth and phones and films?
I wish we could order popcorn with it. Is there an app for that?
There is. I've got it right here. Oh, I left my phone. Oh!